Well, hi guys, it's that time. It's our Bible teaching snippet of the day. I'm so excited to start talking to you a little bit about Christmas and some of the interesting things that very few people know about. I'm going to be using a lot in the book of Luke, and I want to start by saying this. Luke traveled with Paul. And actually, in the book of Timothy, his letter to Timothy, he says Luke is the only one with me that remains, and everyone else has left me. So Luke started traveling with Paul in Acts chapter 16, and that's where the book quits saying them and they and third person, and it picks up in 1634, chapter 16, verse 34, where all of a sudden Luke starts calling it us and we. And we see that now Luke did stay behind for a little while in a city to get a church set up and be one of the leaders of that church. But he and Paul traveled together a lot, and he was with Paul at the end before the Romans beheaded Paul. So with that said, I had a reason for telling you that. There is a book out, and it's called Paul on Trial, and it talks about how most likely Luke wrote the Gospel of Luke laying out all of the details, but he also wrote the book of Acts as a defense for Paul in the Roman court to this Theophilus. And that's why I wanted to start talking about Luke right off. I'm in Luke chapter 1. And I'm going to just read a short snippet here. It says, "Many have tried to report the things that have happened among us. They have written the same things that we learned from others and the people who saw those things, eyewitnesses from the beginning, and served God by telling people his message. Since I myself have investigated everything carefully from the beginning, most excellent Theophilus, it seems good and fitting for me to write it out for you. I have arranged it in order to help you know what you have been taught is true and accurate." I wanted to say this. Now, Luke was an extremely well-educated man. He was a doctor, and most of the doctors a lot of times would serve as lawyers as well because they were the most educated people. Luke, some scholars believe that Luke actually talked to Mary, Jesus' mother. And when you read this in light of probably he did, it gets very interesting. We see in Luke's account where Elizabeth is pregnant with John the Baptist, okay? And Mary comes to see her in her 6th month, and Mary stays with her for 3 months. It would be odd that Mary, being her cousin, and Elizabeth being very, very pregnant in her old age, that Mary would not have stayed behind at Elizabeth's house to make sure that Elizabeth had her baby and then come home. And that may be one of the reasons that Mary stayed back with Elizabeth for that whole 3 months, which is very cool. That is covered in chapter 1 of Luke. Luke also records how Zechariah, John the Baptist's father, did not believe the angel that they in their old age would have children, would have a son. And the angel kept Zechariah from being able to talk. He made him mute. And I believe the reason that he made Zechariah mute is because God had been working through man all these years since the fall in the Garden of Eden to get Jesus born into a virgin, to make prophecy, and all of the things that had been foretold about Jesus had come to the fullness to where it could happen. And they needed that forerunner to be born and to start preaching the gospel of repentance for sins to the people, because that was prophesied. It was very important that John the Baptist was born. And did you know, I've talked to you about words and how important our words are. If Zechariah had spoken in unbelief that they could not have children and continued, then it's possible that Elizabeth would not have had her child. And here's another thing. He had to be named John. That's what the angel told him. And so the moment, and this is recorded and it's so cool, the very moment that he was born, John the Baptist, and the people around was saying, you're going to name him after you, right? Son of Zechariah. And Zechariah, the father, wrote on a tablet, so that knocks down that people back then didn't know how to write, okay? That's just as we go along, okay? So his dad picks up a tablet and writes out, his name is John, and immediately he could speak because the fulfillment of what had to happen in all of the prophecies about John the Baptist being born, the forerunner, the man that would proclaim that the Son of God had come, that had been fulfilled. Well, guys, I'm going to stop right here, and then tomorrow I'm going to start talking about the account of Jesus' birth, and there's some really cool stuff I want to tell you about. So God bless you, and I'll see you right here again on Facebook. Bye-bye.